So you're talking to a client, they've got to the point where they've asked you what your hourly rate is. You're not sure how to reply to that. I'm going to show you how I reply to that, as well as how to reply to the question of how much do you think this project is going to cost. So we'll cover two things: how to provide your hourly rate estimate and how to provide an estimate for the overall project cost. Let's get into it. Now, the way that you answer this question can have a detrimental effect on whether the conversation will continue or it won't. And this gives a lot of anxiety to a lot of people. And I used to have a lot of anxiety about it as well, until I identified what my hourly rates were. And yes, I said hourly rates. I have a few different rates depending upon what I'm going to be doing. Now, there's different levels that you're going to be working with a client. You have the very basic low level, which is just performing very menial work, and you're helping kind of augment their staff for maybe a particular project or scope of time. Then you have more of perhaps a type of team lead, maybe some mentoring, maybe a senior developer type of role, if you're in development, or senior designer or something like that. Or a couple of people might be looking up to you, and you might kind of have to make some more higher level decisions to help drive the actual implementation. Then I have another rate, which is going to be something like team lead and mentor, and perhaps even someone who is a consulting type leadership position in the tech or maybe design, whatever your creative space is in that realm. So I usually have about 3 different rates. And so when a client asks me, what is the rates that you have to finish this project? I reply with a range, and I call this the range method. It's very simple. I will reply with an email, or usually, if I can, will be email. If not, I'll always kind of give them the best way that I can verbally. And that will say, if we're kind of doing just a staff augmentation, performing some tasks, my rate is going to be X. Say that's the lowest amount. Say it's $100 an hour. Now, if you need me to perform more of a senior developer type duties, implement architecture, best practices, et cetera, and maybe also help other team members and maybe do a little bit of mentoring, well, then my rate goes to $125 an hour. Now, if you want me to be a team lead and a mentor to the team, and you want me to also make higher level decisions with the company and executive leadership, that comes in at $150, maybe it's even $175 an hour. Depends on whatever you decide is. And I'm giving you round numbers. Those are not my numbers. Those are just an idea, so you can see the range of numbers that you can have. And then what you tell the client at that point in that email, say, now depending upon what you'd like me to do, it could be the very low amount or it could be the higher amount. Just let me know where you think I can best fit in to help your project. And based upon my conversation with you, I feel it's probably a senior role, which is going to put us at the $125 amount. Please let me know what you think, and we'll talk soon. Now, here's the thing with the range method. You need to be happy with the low amount, because as a business who you're interacting with, their number one goal is to optimize their profits. And to do that, one of the biggest ways they can do it is lower their costs. At the end of the day, people are costs, and they're very expensive costs inside of a business. You need to be happy with that lower number, because that's the one they're going to aim for. But you also need to be willing to have boundaries to say, what you're wanting me to do is much more of a senior role. That's my rate, and you need to be able to stick to that rate. Now, they might come back and say, hey, well, look, 80 to 90% of the work is just task-based work, but we're going to need some kind of architectural guidance to get started. Then you can come back and say, that's fine. How about this? Let's do 2 weeks of the engagement at the senior developer level role. And then after that, once we've identified the scope of the project and just going to be task-based work, we can ramp that back down to whatever the staff augmentation level, and I can work with the team members. However, if you need me to lead the team members and implement these things and guide them, then we do need to bring that back up. And you just make sure that's very clear with the client. Now, here's the reason why this works, is because it shows the client that you're being considerate of the cost of the project. You know that it's expensive. It shows them that you're willing to work with them given certain conditions. Clients love when you can be flexible with them, because businesses are not black and white. Things ebb and flow every single day. Sometimes there's lots of funding. The next day something happens. The market crashes, whatever. There's not a lot of funding. You need to be able to kind of navigate the markets, business, etc. And the more agile you can be with your numbers, the more likely it is that you're going to close more clients. Now, this has worked for me fantastically well since the early 2000s, and I still do it to this day. Where do most clients actually contact me and say, well, we would like to hire you at this level? I would probably send them anywhere from the mid to actually the upper level, because a lot of the work that I do will come in for be architecture, patterns, practices, guidance, etc., mentoring, leading the team, building a team, which is something that can also happen at one of these much higher levels or higher billing rates. For example, I've had many clients that will ask me to be the lead on perhaps the Android components, and then I will actually be responsible for interviewing and hiring my replacement, which sounds really weird. Why would I hire myself out of a job? Most companies want to have full-time staff, and it's not a position that I would have typically taken as full-time staff when I was consulting with them. So I understood that every contract is going to eventually come to a close. I want the company to be successful, because if they're successful, what's going to happen is eventually eventually somebody in that company is going to leave, move to a different company, and they're going to need somebody with my expertise, and they're going to call me, say, hey, can you help us out with this project for 2 months? That's marketing. That's delivering a good product. That's good customer service. And if it's hiring my replacement eventually, that works. Now, second thing, client's going to say, here's our project. How much is this project going to cost? Now, estimating and the art of estimating is beyond the scope of this video, and I will do another one on it and how I do it. It's not an exact science because, let's just face it, every estimate is wrong, and they're basically just best guesses given the information you have at hand. But I found one that works kind of well for me, and then I'll adjust on the fly. So what I do is I'll come up with a best, if everything goes perfect in the world, this is a happy path estimate, meaning no problems occur. It's going to be the cheapest one. But let's be realistic, that doesn't ever happen, but I still keep that number. And then I say, if everything just goes wrong, goes sideways, here's how much I can expect it to cost. And that sometimes can be 2 to almost 3 times the amount. And usually is somewhere in the middle of that. So let's say that a project is going to cost $1,000. And then the high end of that is $3,000. And then I said, well, midpoint of that, it's going to be somewhere about $2,000. Then what I will usually say is, all right, best case scenario, we're looking anywhere from like $1,500 to $1,800. Worst case scenario, we're looking from like $2,800 to $3,200. Most likely, we're going to fall somewhere in between that, but that's kind of, if nothing goes wrong, really, we're kind of going to be on the left-hand side. And if everything kind of goes wrong, we'll be on the right-hand side. Now, a lot of times clients are going to have sticker shock. Oh my God, that's so expensive, especially when you get into numbers that are tens of thousands of dollars and hundreds of thousands of dollars. They'll get a lot of sticker shock. And one way to quell those fears is I will tell the client, I understand that this may be in or out of your budget, or you're worried that it's going to go over budget. Let's do this. Let's start off for the first week. And the first week, I'll tell you exactly how many hours we are in and the estimated percentage that we're in. And then we can decide if we'd like to continue or not. Or what I'd also recommend is you choosing the features or subset of things you want done that are the absolute must-haves that we can ship to provide a minimum viable product, or maybe update or whatever you're doing for the client. And then we can iteratively attack the next items as you have budget available. Now, again, you're providing a range, low end to high end. What this does is shows the client, like, okay, here's kind of the range in which I expect us to follow. That gives them a good idea, because when you give them a solid number, it's going to be $2,975. Well, if you go over that, they didn't expect that. They're expecting it to cost that much. If you come under, well, then that's great. They appreciate it. Very often, things are never exactly as they seem. So I always provide a range because it's usually always falls somewhere in there. Then if some big red flags pop up where for whatever reason, the client says, oh, by the way, we need to add this feature and we need to do this and we need to tweak this screen and we need to do this over here, I'll make note of that and immediately let them know that this is going to affect the scope of the estimate. At that point, they might ask me to re-estimate. I'll tell them, hey, it's going to take another hour or 2 to re-estimate it. Are you okay with that? And then you can kind of keep iterating through this process. You just have to make sure you don't get stuck in the trap of giving an estimate and then having the scope of work change underneath that estimate, because that's the way that you can lose a lot of money through hourly, freelancing, and consulting. So to recap, 2 ways to make sure that you close a lot more contracts with your clients. Provide an hourly range based upon what you're going to be doing for the company. There's a low end, which is you have less responsibility, and there's a high end where you have more responsibility. And they're 2 different rates. Provide that range. Let the client choose where they would like you to go, but give them kind of a nudge saying, here's where I think the role is that you're looking to hire. Let me know what you think. And number 2, when you're quoting the client for the actual project, give a range. The happy path is going to cost less than the worst case scenario path. So give that range to them. Let them know it's probably going to fall somewhere in the middle, and then also give them a couple of options where you can do weekly check-ins with them so they can kind of keep an eye on the budget, keep an eye on the spend that they're going to have, just to make sure that things are occurring in the way that they would like them to occur for the project. I hope that helps. It's what I've been doing for well over a decade, almost coming up on 20 years, and have had a lot of success, and I still use this method to this day. I hope it helps you.